want, you can see it again and again. Okay. So quickly I'll repeat geographical composition of Belgium. It's a small European country, smaller in area than that of Haryana, borders with France, Netherlands, Germany and Luxembourg. It has a population of little over 1 crore, about half of the population of Haryana. So 3 points, 3 marks. Next, ethnic composition of Belgium. Ethnic means the base is based on the language variations or based on the culture variations. We have two parts here. In the whole country, we have 59% live in the Flemish region, speak Dutch language, 40% live in Wallonia region and speak French language, 1% are German speakers. On the other side, you will write capital Brussels on the top, underline and then write 80% of the people here speak French and 20% of the people speak Dutch language. So this is what is the first one. Then the question can be in another form also. What led to tensions between the Dutch and French in Belgium? What led to tensions between the Dutch and French speaking communities in Belgium? Answer is, you will write the ethnic composition again here and then you will sum up the answer writing this, that the tensions were because that who will dominate which region. If Dutch will dominate the whole country, then the French will dominate the Brussels. So the question was, who will frame the government? So that is why there were tensions between the two communities between 1950s and 1960s. That is the problem of Belgium or the tensions. Now, how was this tension were removed in Belgium? How were these tensions removed in Belgium? How was the problem of this, the problem which was faced by the people in the Brussels or people in the Belgium was solved? Now, the problem was solved by, or how the tensions ended in Belgium were, Sri Lankan part we'll do later because I'll continue with the Belgium part so that it can be together. So, how were the tensions removed in Belgium, or how could they accommodate together in Belgium? What do you mean by accommodation? Accommodation means where all different people are able to live unitedly. That is the meaning of accommodation. So in Belgium, the leaders, they have taken a different path. They have amended their constitution several times and finally they came up with a very excellent Belgian model. First point under this is 4 points, children, but can come for 5 marks. So if you write even all the 4 points, you will get all the 5 marks. So the first point is the whole country will have a central government where there will be equal number of Dutch and French speaking ministers. So on the top there will be central government, equal representation. If there are, say for example, 100 ministers for the central legislature, 50 will be Dutch and 50 will be French. So that is how they have divided the central government. Second, they have also divided the country into different states and every state will have a state government. Even in the state government, there will be equal representation of Dutch and French. That is the second level of the government, which is called as state government. Third, Brussels. In Brussels also there is one government, which is the capital city of Belgium. So in Brussels also there is a separate government, which also will have both the equal representation of both the communities. Then we have the fourth type of government here, which is called as community government. Now community government can also be called as a local government. Generally in India, if you talk about local government, it exists in the villages, if we can see. So it can be in the villages also. But in this, the community government, there are certain powers which are taken from central and state government and given to the community government. And here there will be elections by the people belonging to all the communities. That means from every community there will be one person contesting election from Dutch, French and German, and all can vote. All the people can vote. They belong to any category, any religion, any language, they all can give the vote. And what is the duty of the community government? They look after the local needs of the people, their culture, their education, the local needs of these local people. So that is how they made their constitution in a better way. Now, Belgian model is generally a very complicated manner. It's very difficult to remember that there are four sets of different governments and it's complicated to look. But for the Belgian people, it is the best model, and they have proved that it is the best model because after framing this constitution, this kind of accommodation, they were able to live unitedly, and they were also able to avoid civic strife. Civic strife means division of the country. Civic strife means the civil war within the country. Within the country, there was a civil war between the Dutch and French. So they were able to avoid this. Now, second, the last part of this is that Belgium, that is Brussels, the capital of Belgium, was chosen as the headquarters for European Union. Europe is having so many countries, but they have chosen Brussels as the headquarters for European Union. Why is it so? Because Brussels is one of the calm and quiet city, because there are no tensions, there is no civil war at all in Belgium. That is why they have chosen Brussels, because the people were living unitedly. So this existing of European Union headquarters in Brussels tells or proves that the Belgian's constitution is one of the finest constitutions. So that's the about the Belgium. We go back to Sri Lanka very quickly, where we will do first the geographical composition of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a small island nation, just a few kilometers away from the southern coast of Tamil Nadu. Next point, it has about 2 crore people, same as the Haryana. So that's about the Sri Lanka. Then ethnic composition of Sri Lanka is, it is divided into two language groups, Sinhala speakers 74% and Tamil speakers 18%. Now, among these Tamil speakers also there were two types of Tamil speakers. One were the native Tamils who belong to Sri Lanka from the beginning, but they speak Tamil. There are also Tamil speakers who have been shifted to Sri Lanka during the British time. Britishers, they are Indian Tamils. During the British time, there were plantations in Sri Lanka because Sri Lanka was also under the control of British. So at that time, they took lot of people from Tamil Nadu to work in the plantations of Sri Lanka. So many Indian Tamils settled over there. So that's how there are two types of Tamils also in Sri Lanka. So Sri Lankan Tamils were 13%. Now what is the tension between, this is the ethnic composition, and there is one more ethnic composition in Sri Lanka, that all the Sinhalese were Buddhists. All the Sinhala speakers were Buddhists, Buddhism religion. But the Tamils were either Hindus or Muslims, and they were 7% Christians also, which is very less amount over there. Now, what is the tension in Sri Lanka? Tension in Sri Lanka is, once they got independence from the British rule, since Sinhalas were in majority, they thought of making a majoritarian government. What is a majoritarian government? It is a government made by the majority of the people, and they believe that they should rule the country since they are in majority, and by disregarding the wishes and needs of the minority. That means by not giving any rights to the minority. That kind of government is called as majoritarianism. So this is what the Sinhalas followed in Sri Lanka, and to prove their supremacy, that means they are supreme. They are the one who can do anything in the country, who can rule the country. Nobody can stop. So to prove this, they also passed an act which is called as 1956 Act. Again, children, term majoritarianism. This comes for 1 mark. Define the term majoritarianism, or what do you mean by the term majoritarianism? Second, what steps were taken by Sri Lankan government to prove their supremacy? To prove Sinhala supremacy. So this is the act they have passed. Under this act, there are 3 points which comes for 3 marks. So what are the 3 points? Number 1, they declared Sinhala as the only official language and disregarding Tamil. That means all the hoardings, all the announcements, all the official work will be done only in the Sinhala language. No regard will be given to Tamil. People can speak Tamil, but there will be it will not be used as the official language. Second, they followed a preferential policy where only Sinhalas were given the university positions and the government jobs. So they were preferred in these universities and the government jobs. Third point, a new constitution also had stipulated that the state shall protect and foster only Buddhism. So in a way, they have declared Buddhism as the official language. You know what I mean by official language? If they, for example, in Pakistan, Islam is official language. So you cannot go and practice Hinduism or Christianity openly. You can practice at home, but not openly. Same way in Sri Lanka, others can practice other religion, but not openly. Buddhism is practiced openly. So that's how is the 1956 Act. Now what are the consequences of this act? What is the impact or consequences of this act is, because of this act, Sri Lankan Tamils felt alienated. They felt alienated. So the question is, why Sri Lankan Tamils feel alienated in Sri Lanka? Why Sri Lankan Tamils feel alienated in Sri Lanka? What is the answer? Answer is same, 1956 Act and its provisions. So answer will be Sri Lankan Tamils felt alienated in Sri Lanka because they were not given any rights in Sri Lanka. Tamil language was disregarded and they were not given any preferences in the government jobs, and their religion was also not recognized, their religion and culture. That is why they felt alienated. Now what is the result of this 1956 Act? Not only the alienation of Sri Lankan Tamils, it is also a civil war in the country. Because of this, there was a civil war in the country also. So the whole country of Sri Lanka turned into a war area where there was civil. What is civil war? When the war takes place between the two groups of people, or when the war is by the people against the government, their own government, that is called as civil war. So the distrust between the two communities, I'll show this. Okay. This page, right side, the top lines. Right side, first para, top lines. The distrust between the two communities turned into widespread conflict. It soon turned into a civil war. So the question can be, what led to civil war in Sri Lanka? What led to civil war in Sri Lanka? Answer is majoritarianism and 1956 Act. So all that you have to explain. So that led to the civil war in Sri Lanka. So now what is the response of Sri Lankan Tamils against the 1956 Act? What is the response of Sri Lankan Tamils against the 1956 Act, or what were the consequences of 1956 Act? Sri Lankan Tamils felt alienated. Consequences, I am telling you about consequences. There was a civil war in the country, and Sri Lankan Tamils, they have launched their own political parties and organizations and struggles and they demanded that now the question is, what were the demands of Sri Lankan Tamils in Sri Lanka? What were the demands of Sri Lankan Tamils in Sri Lanka? The demands were, they wanted Tamil as an official language. They wanted equality of opportunity in securing education and jobs. Second point, you all can see the left side first paragraph, children. Because if I start and annotate, what happens is again the page I have to open, but I'll no problem, I'll show you. Here if you can see, these are all the points, children, here. These are all the different points in this paragraph. Okay. So, first para, that Tamil should be recognized as official language. Second para, they should have the regional autonomy and equality even in the education and the jobs. Third point, wherever the Sri Lankan Tamils are in large amount or the large population of the Sri Lankan Tamils is there, that place or that area, they should get a separate state which is also called as Tamil Eelam. You can see here one term, Tamil Eelam, which is a separate Tamil state. Where are Tamils mostly, where are the Sri Lankan Tamils mostly concentrated? They are concentrated in, there is a map here which I will show you. For that I need to close this again and annotate. Because whenever I go back, this is the problem. Because we are doing from not slides from NCERT book, from direct Google. So, there is a map here which I will show you. This one, you can see this map. Yellow color is for your Sinhalese. You can see little reddish orange. In the map, it is very light on the screen. So, reddish orange color, that is your Sri Lankan Tamils. So, most of them are living in the north and eastern part of the country. So, they want that in the north and eastern part of the country, there should be more amount of the state, that is the Tamil Eelam state should be given to them. So, that's the map over there, and then I had already done this. And there were civil wars for so many years in the country, children. But it ended in finally 2009. Because the leader of those groups, LTTE group, who was the militant, who is said to be the militant group in Sri Lanka, he was killed. So in 2009, finally, that civil war ended. Belgium we have already done. So we are proceeding towards the next part, that is why power sharing is desirable. Another question in the chapter, why power sharing is desirable, or why do you think that the power sharing is necessary in a democracy? Why do you think power sharing is necessary in a democracy, or why power sharing is desirable? So, answer is here in the first para itself. You can see in the first para here, the points are there, like it is written already. Firstly, power sharing is good because it helps to reduce the possibility of conflict between social groups. So, the first point is that it reduces the conflicts between the groups, different groups. The next one is it avoids it makes the stability of the political parties or the political government. That is, there is a stable government. If there is a civil war in the country or there are clashes, every time the government will keep on changing. So, they won't be able to frame any policies. So, thus there will be a stable government and which can run the country properly in a proper manner at least for 5 years. That is a stable government. Then it will also lead to unity of the nation. If there is power sharing, there will be unity of the nation. That means there will be no division of the country. So these are the 3 points why power sharing is desirable or why is it necessary in a democracy. Now children, the lines which I was talking about, which are asked from this chapter, only these lines will be asked. Don't worry about the other lines at all. So the lines are, either they will ask this part This one, imposing the will of, these lines from here, imposing the will of the majority community over others may look like an attractive option in the short run, but in the long run, it undermines the unity of the nation. This is one part, till nation. Okay, so these are the lines they can be asking, and they'll ask you explain the lines or justify the statement. Now the next line, because I'll tell the answer together, because the next line also means the same. The next line is more important than this. The most important lines of this chapter, the next line, this one. From this word which I am circling. Okay, circled. Tyranny of the majority is not just oppressive for the minority. It often brings ruin to the majority as well. These three lines are the most important lines which are asked in this chapter. Now, I want answer from one of you. Anyone can raise hand, I can see, and then you can answer. Understand the question first. You just have to explain the lines, nothing else. Tyranny of the majority is not just oppressive for the minority. It often brings ruin to the majority as well. Both this line and the lines above are same. What is the meaning? Any one of you? Somil. Somil?
And this means
Yes.
when majority rules over minority, it does not only brings bad effects on minority as they are underjudged or underprivileged by underprivileged, but it
Hmm.
also sometimes bring a bad impact on majority as they are as when there is a rebellion.
Yes. Very correct. It's absolutely correct, Somil.
Thank you,
When
ma'am.
when we're talking about majority rule, when the majority rules without giving the rights to the minorities, it is harmful for the majority also, because the majority government also will not be able to rule peacefully, because there will be continuous attacks upon the majority also. The minority will take revenge. So there will be continuous not so what we are concluding here, that minority will be in a loss if the majority rules, but on the other side majority also will not be able to rule peacefully, as there will be continuous attacks upon them, there will be rebellions, revolts in the country, so even majority will be ruined. That is the meaning. So both the lines which I have discussed here, the meaning is same. Okay, so that's the answer over there. Now Parth is waiting in the lobby. So why should I take entry for him after such a long time? Hmm? So these children trouble. Okay, that is the one. Then we have the coming to the two things very quickly. I am doing because the time is running short. We have only 10 minutes. We have another two questions, one markers again. Give moral reason of power sharing. That's one question. Second one, give prudential reason of power sharing. You can see this term is already there here, prudential reason, which you can see here. Okay, so moral reason and prudential reason. Attendance is being marked. Don't worry, Kashvi. Somebody is there to mark attendance. Don't worry about that. So there will be a reason for this. Moral reason is that power sharing is very spirit of democracy. You can see here. What is moral reason? It is the very spirit of democracy. What is moral means? Because it is written in constitution, we are following it. That is a moral reason. We say that in a democracy, power sharing should be done. So we are doing the power sharing. That is a moral reason. Now, what is the prudential reason? Prudential reason is based on calculations, that if I share power, what is the profit? And if I do not share the power, what is the loss? That is prudential reason. Clear? So, power sharing, prudential reasons. What are the prudential reasons? Prudential reasons are power sharing brings the better outcomes. That means I'm giving the answer which is not here. Power sharing will be able to avoid civil war. Power sharing, prudential reasons I am giving. Power sharing will be able to avoid division of the country. Because of power sharing, there will be the people will be united in the country. That is your prudential reasons. Okay, so you will write separately moral reason, you will write separately prudential reason. We go to the next part. And again it will go back because I am using those anecdote. Whenever I use that, it goes back in NCERT. This. Okay. After this, I told you that this you go like go through like a story which you have to do. Okay. And one more day there will be a live class, children. That day I'll discuss the cartoons also, because this year onwards, earlier 2-3 years before there were cartoons. Then in between 2-3 years they stopped in board exam. Now this year again I got an information that there will be cartoon based questions. So in the next class we'll also learn how to read cartoons. Okay. So let's come back to the first power sharing, forms of power sharing. Now there are 4 types of power sharing in our country. The first type of power sharing in our country is power sharing among organs of the government. Now these organs of the government are at the equal level. We can also call them as horizontal distribution. You can see that they will be at the equal level. So nobody will have unlimited powers. All 3 have the equal powers, but they have been given one power, all the 3, that is they can check each other. They can check each other. Now how they can check each other? That is why they can check each other. That is why they are also called as checks and balances. You can see here there is a term here, checks and balances. This is very important. This year it came in the exam, board exam. In 1 marker, I'll give that MCQ also later to you. So checks and balances also it is called as. And here you have to use these examples, children, which are there in the book. You can use any example, but you should not go wrong. So I suggest that you use this example, that we have executives like Prime Minister, President. These all are part of executives. They hold a lot of powers, but still they are responsible in the legislature. They are part of executive, but they are responsible, they are answerable in the legislature. So legislature checks their powers. In the same manner, judges of Supreme Court and the Chief Justice of Supreme Court are appointed by the President in India, who is an executive. But even then, the judges can also punish the President also. It's not that because President has appointed them, so they cannot punish President if the President is proved guilty. So they can punish executives, whosoever it is, whether Prime Minister or President. So that is again the judiciary is checking upon the executive. So that's why it is called as checks and balances. So we move to the next one, that is the power sharing among different levels of government. Children, when I talk about levels, this one, it is very clear. Levels means one above or other, or one below the other. So that is what is the meaning of the level. So why we are calling this system as levels of government? It is because in the levels we have central government, we have state government, we have local governments also. So central government is at the top. Central government is at the top, which will have more powers. Under that it is the state government. Then under that we have the local government. So we say that central government is powerful among the two. So they have to work under the central government. That is why it is called as levels of government. Now this system is also called as federal form of government. This system is also called as federal form of government. And the third one, we come to the power sharing among different social groups. Now, what do you mean by social groups here? We have so many social groups in our country. We have so many castes in our country. When we see them, we see that there are so many weaker sections of the society in our country, which were not given any rights once upon a time. but our constitution has made in this manner that the power should be shared even among these weaker sections also. So socially weaker sections as well as the women, these all also have been given certain powers. For example, women have been given certain reserved seats. For example, 1/3 seats in the local government. In the same manner, we have been weaker sections like scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, OBCs have been given certain seats in the parliament. Reserved constituencies have been given for them, and certain seats also have been given for them in the jobs, etc. So that's the third part where you will use these examples which are given in the book. Fourth part is power sharing between the political parties, pressure groups and movements. Now, political parties example is coalition government. Today, no single government, no single party gets the majority of the votes. So they have to take they have to even ask the votes from the other political parties. So for this, they need to join with the other parties, and they frame the government which is called as the coalition government. So that's when they frame the coalition government, they have to share the powers. So that is how the political parties share the power. Pressure groups and movements are the groups which put the pressure on the government to accept their demands. For example, when I talk about the for example, the Jats Andolan was there 1 or 2 years back. If you know, even the water supply was completely taken off from Delhi. If you know, remember, there was no water supply in Delhi because at that time the Jats in Haryana were protesting for the reservation in the government jobs and the universities. So at that time they have revolted. So that kind of revolt, that is a group which is called as a pressure group. So they have put pressure on the government to accept their demands. Maybe the methods may be wrong, but they are called as the pressure group. So that's how the even the pressure groups share the power. So we need, the government has to share powers with some of the pressure groups also. So that's about the chapter children, and we have some cartoons which will go across. And what I want you to do is not only what I discussed in the chapter children, I have already given the questions in earlier PDF form. I want all of you to do the question number 5. Go through that paragraph. Question number 5, paragraph question, because in the next class I will also discuss this paragraph question. I will also discuss this paragraph because now onwards, like in English, there will be paragraph questions, but the paragraph will be from the book, not like in English, which is from outside. From the book, the paragraphs will be there. So this is one of the paragraph which is expected from political science. So you go through the paragraph thoroughly. In the next class, I'll ask you the questions on the paragraph. I'll not tell you now. So on this spot, I'll ask you the questions. You can answer. So that's all about today, and that's the revision of the first chapter, that is power sharing children. So have a good day, students.